The streets of Suzhou's old quarter glistened under the faint drizzle, red lanterns swaying gently above narrow alleys. The fragrance of steamed buns drifted from vendors, mingling with the sharp scent of wet stone. Amid the modest bustle, a man walked quietly with his hands folded behind his back, his black cotton jacket blending him with the crowd. His name was Li Wei. To the townsfolk, he was nothing more than an orphan who married into the Mei family, a family once proud, now crumbling under debts and fading reputation. People whispered behind their fans and teacups, calling him the useless son-in-law. They laughed at how he married Mei Lin, the graceful but sharp-tongued daughter of the Mei household, and lived off her family's scraps. What they didn't know was that Li Wei carried a secret deeper than the mist that rolled off the canals of Suzhou. Behind his calm eyes was not a beggar, not a charity case, but a man whose name in the world of business could make banks bow and officials tremble. He was the CEO of Tianlong Holdings, a financial empire with roots stretching from Beijing to Hong Kong. Yet here, in this quiet town, he was simply a despised husband with no face and no worth. The Mei residence still carried traces of former grandeur. Wooden pillars carved with dragons, faded silk curtains hanging limply, and a gate that once greeted governors but now squeaked when opened. Inside, a storm brewed. "Why did you bring him into this family, father?" Mei Lin's elder aunt snapped, her sharp voice cutting through the air. "Our name is already declining, and you marry your daughter to this orphan? People laugh behind our backs." Her father, Mei Zhenhua, coughed weakly from his chair, his health fragile from years of stress. "Li Wei is honest. He will take care of Mei Lin," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Deep down, even he had doubts. Mei Lin sat silently, her back straight, her silk dress shimmering under the lantern light. She was beautiful, every feature sharp as porcelain, every gesture refined. But her eyes were cold as the winter lake. She stole a glance at Li Wei, who stood quietly at the corner, his gaze lowered, showing neither pride nor humiliation. To her, he was nothing. When the marriage was arranged 6 months ago, she had cried for days. She had dreamed of a husband from a renowned family, someone who could restore the Mei reputation. Instead, she was shackled to a man with no family name, no fortune, no glory. The villagers whispered, the relatives sneered, and in her heart, a wall grew higher every day. That evening, when most of the household had retired, Mei Lin confronted her husband in the small courtyard. The moon hung low, casting silver shadows over the stone floor. "You must understand something," she said, her voice crisp, each word laced with disdain. "You may bear the title of my husband, but do not mistake it for acceptance. I agreed to this marriage only because my father insisted. In this house, you are nothing more than a shadow." Li Wei looked at her for a long moment. The wind rustled the bamboo leaves, and he could almost hear the echoes of his own restraint cracking within. Yet he only bowed slightly and replied, "I understand." That was all. No anger, no defense, only calm. But deep in his chest, something burned. The days passed slowly. Li Wei rose early, sweeping the courtyard, fetching water, helping servants carry rice. The townsfolk laughed when they saw him in the market, bargaining for cabbage and tofu. "Look at the great son-in-law of the Mei family," they joked. "A fine errand boy." Yet beneath their mockery, Li Wei's sharp eyes caught details others ignored. The fluctuation of grain prices, the whispers of merchants about failing businesses, the quiet desperation of bankers visiting the Mei estate. He stored every piece of information silently, like a hunter waiting for the right moment. At night, he sat by a dim oil lamp, reading newspapers and financial reports hidden beneath plain covers. No one knew that every week, coded letters traveled from his hands to faraway offices in Shanghai, where executives trembled to receive his orders. He was still the master of an empire, but cloaked in humility. One evening, as the rain hammered against the tiled roofs, Mei Lin entered their shared chamber. She paused when she saw him sitting by the lamp, reading again. "Always pretending to be something more than you are," she muttered. "Books will not change what you are, Li Wei. You are still the Mei family's shame." Li Wei closed the paper gently, his eyes meeting hers. For a fleeting second, she thought she saw something dangerous in them, like a blade hidden in silk. But then he lowered his gaze again, his voice steady. "Perhaps one day, you will see me differently." She scoffed, turning away. "That day will never come." Her words were ice, but they lingered in his chest long after she left the room. The festival of the Mid-Autumn Moon approached. Red lanterns decorated the streets, and families prepared offerings. For the Mei family, however, celebration was thin. Creditors had begun circling, debts demanding payment. Relatives whispered that the Mei name might collapse entirely before the new year. At a family gathering, one cousin sneered openly at Li Wei. "Perhaps our great son-in-law can help." "Oh, but what can he give? He cannot even buy his wife a pair of jade earrings." Laughter filled the hall. Li Wei remained silent, his chopstick steady, his expression unreadable. But Mei Lin felt the burn of humiliation. Her cheeks flushed red, and in that moment, hatred for her husband deepened. To her, his silence was cowardice, his humility weakness. She did not know that the man she despised could buy and sell the entire Mei estate with a single signature. Late that night, when Li Wei stood under the moonlight in the courtyard, he whispered to himself, "I endure because I chose this path. But Mei Lin, how far will you go to test my patience?" The night wind carried his words into the darkness, but only the shadows knew the truth, that beneath his quiet mask lay the fury of a man who could shake kingdoms if he wished. And one day, that fury would no longer be restrained. The morning mist hung low over the canals, veiling Suzhou in soft silver. In the Mei residence, the courtyard echoed with the sound of sweeping. Li Wei moved the broom steadily across the stone floor, his posture calm, his face unreadable. He had already fetched water from the well, prepared tea for Mei Zhenhua, and chopped wood for the kitchen. These small duties had become his routine. Yet within the walls of the household, whispers spread like fire. "Such a pitiful sight," muttered one maid, carrying laundry past the courtyard. "The Mei son-in-law works harder than the servants, yet no one respects him." Another snickered. "Respect? He doesn't deserve any. He's just living off Lady Mei Lin's pity. Without her, he'd be starving in the streets." They giggled, their voices sharp as knives. Li Wei heard them, but his hands never faltered on the broom. His silence was his shield. Inside the main hall, Mei Lin sat before her dressing table, a mirror reflecting her cold beauty. Her maid combed her long black hair, weaving it with silver pins. She wore a pale blue silk dress embroidered with cranes, her posture proud, as though she were a noblewoman preparing to meet ministers, though in truth, her family's standing was crumbling. When Li Wei entered with the tea tray, she glanced at him briefly, her eyes narrowing. "Set it down," she said curtly, not even turning fully toward him. He obeyed silently, placing the porcelain cups on the table with care. Her maid smirked behind her hand. "Young madam, perhaps one day this husband of yours will learn to carry himself with dignity." Mei Lin's lips curved into a cold smile. "Dignity? He has none to begin with. He is an ornament father forced upon me, nothing more." Li Wei's hand lingered briefly on the teacup, then withdrew. He did not respond, though her words sliced into the quiet air. That afternoon, Mei Lin was invited to a gathering hosted by Madame Wu, the wife of a wealthy merchant. The Mei family could not afford to lose connections, and so she attended with her cousin. The gathering was filled with silken gowns, jeweled hairpins, and the scent of lotus pastries. Women sat around lacquered tables, their voices sweet but laced with venom. "I heard the May family's debts are piling higher than the city walls," one woman whispered, fanning herself. "And their daughter married that orphan, Li Wei. Imagine lowering herself so far," another added, laughter tinkling. Mei Lin's face remained calm, but inside, shame coiled like a snake. When Madame Wu turned to her with a smile that carried hidden thorns, she asked, "Tell us, Lady Mei Lin, how does it feel to have such a humble husband?" The women chuckled, their eyes glittering. For a moment, Mei Lin's pride screamed to defend herself, to deny the whispers. But then she remembered Li Wei's silence at the family table, his lowered gaze, his plain clothes. She clenched her jaw. "It is what fate has given me," she replied coldly. "Though I cannot say it brings me pride." The women laughed again, satisfied. When she returned home that evening, Li Wei greeted her at the gate with an umbrella, shielding her from the drizzle. She brushed past him without a word. That night, in their shared chamber, the silence grew heavy. Li Wei sat at the wooden table, reading a book hidden within plain covers, while Mei Lin removed her hairpins before the mirror. Finally, she spoke, her voice sharp. "Do you know what people say about me, Li Wei? About us?" He looked up slowly. "I can imagine. They laugh," she said, turning toward him, her eyes blazing. "They say I married beneath me. They say my husband is a beggar, a man with no family, no wealth, no honor. Do you understand the shame I endure every time I step outside?" Li Wei closed his book carefully, setting it aside. He rose and approached her, his steps unhurried. Standing behind her chair, he looked into the mirror, meeting her reflection. "And what do you say, Mei Lin?" he asked softly. "Do you believe them?" Her lips tightened. "What else am I to believe, when you never deny it? When you let them mock you, mock us, and you remain silent?" Silence stretched between them. The candlelight flickered, casting shadows over his face. Then he said, almost in a whisper, "Sometimes silence holds more power than words. But one day, Mei Lin, you will learn who I truly am." She laughed bitterly, standing abruptly. "Empty promises. That is all you are." Without another glance, she lay down on the bed, turning her back to him. Li Wei stood still for a long moment, then returned to his seat, the unreadable calm on his face hiding the storm within. The following days only deepened the divide. Mei Lin treated him with indifference, her words often laced with disdain. She spent her time with relatives and wealthy acquaintances, trying desperately to preserve the Mei family's image. Whenever she walked through the market, people whispered about her pitiful marriage, and though she never showed it outwardly, inside her heart boiled with humiliation. One evening, she overheard her cousin speaking with her mother in hushed tones. "Lin deserves better. Perhaps, if she were free of Li Wei, another marriage could save our family." Her mother sighed. "But your grandfather's last wish was that Li Wei remain. To cast him out would dishonor his memory." Mei Lin clenched her fists outside the door. In her heart, a dangerous thought began to bloom. What if honor must be sacrificed for survival? Meanwhile, Li Wei continued his quiet watch. He saw the creditors circling closer, the merchants withdrawing support, the Mei estate sinking faster each day. And he saw Mei Lin's growing resentment, like frost spreading across glass. One evening, he stood alone in the courtyard, the lantern light flickering against the rain-wet stones. His eyes, usually calm, burned with something fierce. "She despises me now," he murmured to the night. "But if she dares to betray me, to sell me for her so-called honor, then she will learn the weight of my wrath." For beneath his humble mask, Li Wei was still the master of Tianlong Holdings, a man who could crush families, empires, and entire dynasties with a single command. And though he had chosen to live as a shadow, His patience was not infinite. The night wind rustled the bamboo, carrying his vow into the darkness. The Mei residence, once alive with the bustle of merchants and visiting officials, now felt heavy with silence. The corridors echoed with the faint creak of wooden floors, the lanterns dimmer than before, as though the house itself shared in the family's decline. At the head of this troubled household sat Mei Zhenhua, Mei Lin's father. His health was failing, his debts mounting. Each day, letters from creditors arrived like vultures circling a dying beast. That morning, Mei Lin sat in the reception hall, staring at one such letter. The red seal had already been broken, but the words burned still. Payment due within 7 days, or collateral will be seized. Her hands trembled as she folded it back, her heart hammering. If word spread that the Mei family could not pay their debts, ruin would be inevitable. Their name would crumble, and her family would be mocked in every tea-house and market stall. Just then, her cousin Mei Rong entered, her silk robes rustling as she walked. Unlike Mei Lin, who bore herself with restrained dignity, Mei Rong's manner was sly, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. "Another letter?" Mei Rong asked sweetly, though her gaze glittered with amusement. "How unfortunate! Perhaps your husband will pay." The word husband dripped with mockery. Mei Lin stiffened. "You know Li Wei has nothing." Mei Rong's smile widened. "So the rumors are true, your beggar husband cannot even protect his wife. Tell me, cousin, how long will you cling to such a man before you cut him loose?" Mei Lin's eyes hardened, but she said nothing. Inside, however, her pride bled like an open wound. That afternoon, Mei Lin attended another gathering, this time hosted by Master Zhao, a wealthy merchant with ties to influential families. His grand residence was filled with red lanterns and carved screens, a sharp contrast to the fading glory of the Mei estate. Master Zhao, a man in his early 40s with a broad smile that never touched his calculating eyes, greeted her warmly. "Lady Mei Lin, it is always a pleasure to see such grace under pressure. Please, sit." The words were honeyed, but his gaze was heavy, lingering too long. As the other guests laughed and drank, Master Zhao leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I hear your family faces difficulties. Creditors knocking, debts swelling. A tragedy for a house as noble as the Mei." Mei Lin's throat tightened. "Our matters are our own, Master Zhao." He chuckled softly. Of course. Yet, sometimes, salvation comes from unexpected hands. I could clear your family's debts in a single stroke." Her eyes widened, but before hope could rise, his smile curved into something darker. "In exchange, you would grant me what I desire most. Your beauty, Lady Mei Lin, and your hand, whether as wife or companion." Mei Lin's stomach turned cold. She gripped her teacup tightly, her knuckles white. "You insult me," she hissed under her breath. "On the contrary," Zhao replied smoothly, "I offer you a chance to save your family's name. Or do you prefer to cling to your useless husband while your house collapses?" The words struck her like a blade. That night, back at the Mei residence, Mei Lin sat alone in her chamber, staring at the candle flame. Li Wei entered quietly, carrying a tray with a bowl of hot broth. "You have not eaten," he said simply, setting it down on the table. She looked at him, her eyes clouded with turmoil. For a fleeting moment, she wondered, could he truly be as powerless as he seemed? Was there nothing behind his silence but emptiness? "Li Wei," she asked suddenly, her voice trembling, "if the Mei family were to collapse, what would you do?" He met her gaze calmly. "I would remain at your side." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "That is not enough. Loyalty does not feed mouths, nor does it pay debts." His expression did not change, though in his eyes a flicker of something sharp appeared. "Do you believe wealth is the only measure of worth, Mei Lin?" "Yes," she snapped, standing abruptly. "It is the only shield we have left. Without it, we are nothing, I am nothing. And you," her voice faltered, but the words spilled out like poison. You are the proof of that. A husband with no name, no money, no power. Every day I bear the shame of you, Li Wei." The chamber fell silent, her cruel words echoing in the air. Li Wei stood very still, his face unreadable. Then, with quiet steadiness, he said, "Be careful, Mei Lin. Pride has a price. One day, you may pay more than you imagine." He left the room without another word, the soft creak of the door closing behind him. The following days, Mei Lin's heart wrestled with itself. Each whisper in the market, each mocking glance at her side, fanned the flames of her pride. The thought of Master Zhao's offer gnawed at her, shameful, degrading, yet tempting in its promise of salvation. Her father's coughing grew worse, creditors grew louder, and Li Wei's silence only infuriated her more. Finally, one evening, Mei Rong approached her in the garden. "Cousin," Mei Rong said slyly, "do you know what people are saying? They say the Mei daughter is doomed because of her beggar husband. But there is a way out." Mei Lin's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "Master Zhao," Mei Rong whispered. "He is willing to save your family. But he will never move while Li Wei stands in the way. Sell him off, divorce him, cast him aside, do whatever it takes. Then, Zhao will extend his hand. It is the only way." Mei Lin's hands trembled, but she said nothing. In her chest, pride and shame warred against loyalty and duty. Later that night, as she lay in bed, she whispered to herself, "If I must sacrifice him, then so be it. Better one man's ruin than the ruin of my entire family." Out in the courtyard, Li Wei stood in the shadows, his sharp eyes lifted toward their chamber window. He had heard enough. His lips curved into a cold, humorless smile. "So, this is the choice you make, Mei Lin," he murmured to the night. "You would sell me to protect your pride." The lantern light flickered across his face, revealing not the meek, powerless husband everyone believed him to be, but the hardened steel beneath. Very softly, he whispered, "If you betray me, Mei Lin, then I will show you who your husband truly is, and the world will tremble at my name." The bamboo leaves rustled in the wind, carrying the promise of reckoning. The Mei residence was unusually busy that morning. Servants hurried back and forth, carrying trays and scrolls, whispering behind their sleeves. Word had spread quickly. Master Zhao was coming for a formal visit. Though no one said it aloud, everyone knew why. Inside her chamber, Mei Lin stood before the bronze mirror, her maid carefully pinning a jade hair ornament into her dark hair. She wore a pale green silk robe embroidered with phoenix patterns, a sign of dignity and grace. Yet her eyes were clouded with hesitation. Her cousin, Mei Rong, leaned against the doorway, smirking. "Perfect," Mei Rong said, her voice smooth as oil. "You look every inch the noble lady you claim to be. Master Zhao will be pleased." Mei Lin's hands tightened around the sash at her waist. "I am doing this for my family," she whispered, almost to herself. "No," Mei Rong corrected with a sly smile. "You are doing this for your pride. Don't mistake one for the other." The word stung, but Mei Lin said nothing. Meanwhile, in the outer courtyard, Li Wei carried a bucket of water, pouring it gently over the roots of a young plum tree. To the servants, he was nothing more than the dutiful but useless husband, quiet, obedient, easily overlooked. But his ears were sharp, and whispers traveled quickly. He already knew why Zhao was coming. When he saw Mei Lin pass through the courtyard on her way to the reception hall, her head held high and her robe shimmering under the sunlight, his gaze followed her silently. He said nothing, but in his heart he knew. Today, she will betray me. The reception hall brimmed with tension. Master Zhao entered with pomp, his attendants carrying gifts, bolts of silk, jars of fine wine, and boxes of silver ingots. The servants gasped at the sight of such wealth, their eyes wide with greed. At the head of the hall, Mei Zhenhua, Mei Lin's father, struggled to rise from his seat. His coughing fit shook his frail body until Zhao himself waved a hand. "No need, Master Mei. I come today not as a creditor, but as a friend." His voice carried authority, yet underneath it purred the satisfaction of a predator closing in on his prey. Mei Lin entered, her steps graceful but heavy with the weight of decision. She bowed politely, her face calm though her heart pounded. "Master Zhao," she greeted, "your generosity humbles us." Zhao's smile widened. "It is nothing. I would give much more, if the Mei family entrusted its future to me." The implication was clear. Everyone in the hall, servants, relatives, even her father, looked toward Mei Lin. Her father's weak eyes searched hers. "Liner, if there is a way to save the Mei family, do not hesitate." Her chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to cry, to tell them she was being cornered. But instead, she raised her chin and spoke. "If Master Zhao is willing, I am prepared to sever ties with my current husband, Li Wei, who has brought nothing but shame upon this household." A murmur rippled through the hall. Some gasped in shock, others nodded approvingly. Mei Rong smirked from the side, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Master Zhao's laughter boomed. "Wise. Very wise, Lady Mei Lin. Once you are free of that useless beggar, I shall take you as my wife. And with me, the Mei family will rise again." The hall erupted in applause from opportunistic relatives and greedy servants. But at that very moment, a voice cut through the noise. "Is that so?" The crowd turned. Standing at the entrance of the hall was Li Wei, his simple robe plain, his posture unassuming. But his eyes, dark, sharp, and steady, commanded attention. He walked slowly into the hall, each step deliberate, as though he owned the ground beneath his feet. The servants shifted uneasily, though they did not understand why. Mei Lin's heart skipped. For the first time, she felt a tremor of fear under his calm gaze. "Li Wei," she said sharply, trying to regain control. "This is not your place. Leave at once." But he did not move. His gaze swept over the hall, pausing on Zhao, then finally resting on Mei Lin. "So," he said softly, his voice calm but laced with steel, "you would sell me to another man for silver and silk. Tell me, Mei Lin, do you feel no shame?" The hall fell silent. Her face flushed crimson. "You dare speak so before my family? Before Master Zhao? You are nothing, Li Wei. Nothing but a burden dragging me down." His lips curved into a faint smile, though his eyes were cold. "Is that what you believe? That I am nothing?" "Yes," she spat, her pride burning away any trace of hesitation. "I regret the day you entered this house. From this moment on, I cast you aside." Her words echoed like thunder, sealing the betrayal. Master Zhao laughed loudly, slapping his knee. "Did you hear that, boy? She has chosen. Leave this house and never return. You are unworthy even to speak her name." The relatives and servants joined in, sneering, their voices sharp. "Beggar husband! Shameless parasite! Get out!" Li Wei stood still, their insults washing over him like waves against stone. For the first time, a crack of true anger appeared in his expression. He looked at Mei Lin, and in his voice was a promise that chilled the air. "Remember this day, Mei Lin. Remember every word you spoke, every insult you cast. You will learn the true cost of betrayal." Then, without bowing, without another glance, he turned and walked away. The hall buzzed with mocking laughter, but Mei Lin felt no triumph. Instead, a strange weight pressed against her chest, as if she had severed something far greater than a marriage. She clenched her fists, telling herself it was necessary. For her father, for the Mei family, for honor. And yet, deep inside, an unfamiliar fear began to bloom. Outside the residence, Li Wei stepped into the cold evening air. The lantern light flickered against his face, illuminating the shadow of a man no one truly knew. He lifted his gaze toward the distant mountains, his eyes sharp, unyielding. "They wanted a beggar," he murmured. "Now they will face the truth." A thin smile, cruel and resolute, curved his lips. "I gave them loyalty. They repaid me with betrayal. Very well. Let the world witness what happens when you awaken the fury of Li Wei." The night wind carried his words like a warning, unseen but inevitable. The night in Suzhou was cloaked in mist, the moon hidden behind thick clouds. Lanterns flickered along the streets, casting long, wavering shadows on the cobblestones. Li Wei walked alone, his figure blending into the silence, yet inside him burned a fire that could not be quenched. The humiliation in the Mei residence replayed in his mind. Mei Lin's cold voice, Zhao's arrogant laughter, the scorn of the servants. Each memory cut deeper than a blade. "They think me weak. They think me a beggar. Very well. Let them enjoy their illusion a little longer." He turned down a quiet alley, where a black lacquered carriage waited. The coachman bowed low. "Young master," he said respectfully, "we did as you ordered. No one suspects your true identity." Li Wei's eyes, once clouded with pain, now gleamed with icy control. He stepped into the carriage without a word. Inside, a man in dark robes waited, his trusted aide, Chen Hao, a former general who had sworn loyalty to him years ago. "My lord," Chen Hao said quietly, "we heard what happened today. Should we strike now? Zhao's influence is shallow compared to your reach. One command from you, and his entire house will vanish overnight." Li Wei raised a hand, silencing him. "No, not yet." Chen Hao frowned. "But to suffer such insults." "Insults?" Li Wei's voice was calm, but his eyes were cold steel. "I endured them willingly. Today was not loss, it was revelation. Now I know who values me, and who would throw me to the wolves." He leaned back, his fingers drumming lightly against the polished wood of the carriage. "Zhao believes he can buy my wife with silver. Mei Lin believes she can discard me without consequence. Let them think so. When the veil lifts, they will learn who I truly am." Chen Hao bowed his head. "As you command, my lord." But the men grow restless. They whisper, "How long will the dragon hide its claws?" Li Wei's lips curved faintly. "Not long. The time approaches." At the Mei residence, the atmosphere had changed. Word spread quickly of Mei Lin's decision. Relatives congratulated her for securing Zhao's favor. Servants praised her for being wise and pragmatic. But not everyone rejoiced. That night, as she sat by her father's bedside, Mei Lin felt no triumph. Her father's condition worsened. The coughs tore through his body like knives. He gripped her hand weakly. "Lina, Zhao will protect this house. You did well," he whispered before drifting into uneasy sleep. Mei Lin sat silently, her heart heavy. She told herself again and again, "I did this for him. For the family. For honor." Yet when she closed her eyes, she saw Li Wei's face, calm, unreadable, but with eyes that pierced her soul. His parting words echoed in her mind. "Remember this day." She shuddered, unable to explain why his gaze unsettled her more than Zhao's threats. The following morning, Master Zhao returned with even greater pomp. He arrived in a golden sedan, accompanied by bodyguards and musicians. Villagers gathered outside the gates, gossiping excitedly. "This is the man Lady Mei Lin will marry. Truly, she has secured the future of her family." Inside, Zhao entered the main hall with arrogance, his heavy robes dragging along the polished floor. Mei Lin forced a polite smile, though her heart recoiled at the sight of him. "My future bride," Zhao said smoothly, taking her hand without asking. "Soon, all of Suzhou will know you as Lady Zhao. Your family will no longer suffer poverty. With me, you will live in luxury." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I am grateful, Master Zhao. But the divorce must be finalized first." Zhao chuckled. "Do not worry. A man like Li Wei has no power to resist. He will vanish like dust once I decree it." At that very moment, a servant rushed into the hall, bowing breathlessly. "Master Zhao, there are men outside. Dozens of them. They refuse to state their allegiance, but they say they await someone's command." Zhao frowned, his arrogance flickering. "What nonsense is this? Who dares disrupt my visit?" Mei Lin stiffened. For a fleeting second, an image of Li Wei flashed in her mind. That night, in a secluded courtyard far from the Mei residence, torches burned brightly. Rows upon rows of men in dark armor knelt before Li Wei, their voices uniting as one. "Lord Li Wei." The sound shook the ground like thunder. Chen Hao stepped forward, his voice carrying, "My lord, the Black Pavilion awaits your command. Say the word, and Zhao's house will be ashes by dawn." Li Wei stood on the raised platform, his plain robe fluttering in the wind. The mask of the humble son-in-law had fallen away, replaced by the aura of a man born to rule. "Not yet," he declared, his voice echoing. "I will not strike like a thief in the night. Zhao and the Mei family must fall by their own choices, by the weight of their greed and betrayal. Only then will the world see justice." The men roared in agreement, their loyalty unwavering. But as the cheers filled the air, Li Wei's heart was not entirely free of pain. Mei Lin's face haunted him still. Her betrayal had cut deeper than any enemy's blade. And yet, a part of him, buried beneath anger, still wondered if she regretted her choice. He clenched his fist, silencing the thought. "No," he muttered under his breath. "Compassion is weakness. She made her decision. Now she must bear its cost." Meanwhile, Mei Lin found herself unable to sleep. She wandered the empty corridors of the Mei residence, her footsteps echoing softly. The silence pressed heavily on her chest. When she reached the courtyard, she noticed the plum tree that Li Wei used to water every morning. The soil was still damp from his last care. She touched the leaves, her throat tightening. "Why do I feel this way?" she whispered. "Why do his words haunt me when Zhao offers wealth and power?" The night wind carried no answer, only the faint echo of Li Wei's parting vow. "You will learn the true cost of betrayal." And deep in her heart, for the first time, Mei Lin felt afraid. The city of Suzhou awoke to a strange unease. Rumors spread like wildfire, whispers of masked men gathering in the night, of shadows moving through the alleys, of a storm waiting to erupt. At the Mei residence, the servants hurried nervously, casting glances toward the gates. Mei Lin sat in the main hall, her composure perfect on the outside, but her heart restless. She had seen Zhao again that morning, his arrogance more suffocating than ever. He demanded that the divorce be signed within 3 days, promising to reward the Mei family with vast sums of silver once she officially became his wife. Her father, frail and coughing blood, urged her to obey. "Child, do not waver. Zhao is our salvation." Yet the more she thought of Li Wei, the way he had walked out without anger, the look in his eyes, her chest tightened. Why does it feel as if we have pushed away a mountain, only to cling to a crumbling wall? That afternoon, Zhao hosted a banquet at an opulent tea house overlooking the canals. The most powerful merchants and minor officials of Suzhou attended, eager to curry favor. Mei Lin sat by Zhao's side, her beauty dazzling but her smile strained. Zhao raised his cup, his voice booming. "Let it be known. Soon, Lady Mei Lin will be mine, and together we shall dominate Suzhou's trade. To wealth, to power." The hall erupted in cheers. But then the doors opened. A hush fell as Li Wei walked in, still clad in plain robes, his hair tied simply. His presence, however, silenced the crowd in a way Zhao's bluster never could. "Li Wei," Zhao sneered. "How dare you enter uninvited? This is no place for beggars." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Some laughed, others watched curiously. Li Wei's eyes swept the room, calm and cold, before resting on Mei Lin. She stiffened under his gaze, her heart pounding. He spoke, his voice steady. "I came not to beg, Zhao. I came to give warning." The crowd leaned in, captivated. Those who place their faith in false wealth will see it crumble. Those who betray loyalty for silver will taste ruin. Remember this night. Zhao roared with laughter. Empty threats from a discarded husband. "Guards, throw him out." 2 men stepped forward, but before they could touch him, a sudden thud echoed. One of the guards fell to his knees, gasping, as a shadowy figure appeared behind him. Chen Hao. Gasps filled the hall. Then, as if on cue, the windows burst open. Dozens of men in black poured in, silent and disciplined, surrounding the banquet. Their armor gleamed under the lantern light, their movements precise like trained soldiers. The merchants paled. Some dropped their cups. Zhao's face turned red with fury. What is the meaning of this? Li Wei's eyes never left him. You call me a beggar. You call me worthless. Yet these men, these loyal hearts, stand not for your silver, but for me. Tell me, Zhao, who truly holds power? For the first time, Zhao's bravado faltered. His hand trembled as he set down his cup. Mei Lin's breath caught in her throat. She could hardly believe her eyes. Her humble husband, the man she had scorned, stood before an army. His aura had transformed. He was no longer the shadow at her side, but a towering figure who commanded fear and respect. The banquet descended into chaos. Some merchants fled, others knelt instinctively, recognizing authority when they saw it. Zhao, desperate to maintain face, slammed his hand on the table. So what if you have men? Do you think you can defy me? I have the governor's favor. One word from me, and the law will crush you. Li Wei stepped closer, his gaze sharp as a blade. The governor? He gave a cold smile. Do you truly believe he bows to you? You fool. He has dined at my table, signed treaties under my seal. While you were busy counting coins, I was building an empire. A deadly silence filled the hall. Zhao's face drained of color. Mei Lin's hands trembled in her lap. Empire. The word echoed in her mind like thunder. Li Wei turned, addressing the crowd. I hid my name and station not for weakness, but to see who values truth over appearances. Today, I have my answer. His eyes swept to Mei Lin, piercing her soul. And the one who failed the test will bear the weight of her choice. Mei Lin's lips parted, but no words came. Shame and regret flooded her, twisting in her chest like a knife. That night, Zhao fled the banquet humiliated, but his pride would not let him rest. He summoned thugs, bribed officials, and plotted to strike at Li Wei in secret. Yet every move he made was already anticipated. In the shadows, Li Wei's men dismantled Zhao's networks piece by piece. Smuggling routes were cut off, bribed officials confessed under pressure, and merchants withdrew support. Within days, Zhao's once mighty house trembled on the brink of collapse. Rumors spread through Suzhou. Zhao is finished. The mysterious man holds true power. They say he is no mere merchant. Some whisper he is a lord from the capital. The people's eyes began to turn, no longer mocking Li Wei, but bowing their heads when he passed. In the Mei residence, Mei Lin could no longer sleep. Her father grew weaker by the day, and though Zhao sent no aid, Li Wei's influence had mysteriously brought physicians, medicines, and even protection to their gates. One evening, she stood beneath the plum tree again, tears slipping down her face. Li Wei, she whispered into the night. I was blind. I betrayed you. And now I fear I've lost you forever. Unbeknownst to her, Li Wei watched from the shadows, his expression unreadable. For a moment, his hand twitched, as if he might step forward. But then the memory of betrayal hardened his heart. He turned away, his cloak billowing like a dark wing. Not yet. She must learn. Only when the world crumbles around her will she understand the cost of betrayal. The rain fell heavily over Suzhou, drumming against the tiled rooftops, flooding the narrow alleys, and turning the canals into dark mirrors of the storm above. The city seemed to hold its breath, as if it knew a great shift was about to unfold. Inside the Mei residence, Mei Lin knelt beside her father's bed, wiping his brow with trembling hands. His breathing was shallow, each cough staining the cloth with red. "Father," she whispered, her tears blurring her vision. "Hold on a little longer. I'll fix this. I'll make things right." But in her heart, she knew her efforts had come too late. Every choice she had made, signing the divorce paper, agreeing to Zhao's terms, had led to this ruin. Her father clasped her hand weakly. "Lina, I only wanted you safe. I thought Zhao would protect you. But I was blind. The one who truly cared, the one who endured humiliation for us, was him." His voice cracked. "Li Wei. Remember his name." Her tears fell freely now. "Yes, Li Wei. The husband I sold away." That same night, across the city, Zhao raged like a wounded beast. His house was crumbling, servants had fled, allies abandoned him, and debts came crashing down. The governor, once bribed into silence, now distanced himself, fearful of Li Wei's shadowy power. Zhao smashed a vase against the wall, his eyes bloodshot. "It's him. That cursed beggar turned tyrant. He ruined me." One of his last loyal henchmen trembled at his side. "Master Zhao, perhaps we should leave Suzhou before it is too late." Zhao seized him by the collar, spittle flying. "No, I will not crawl away. If I can't have Mei Lin, if I can't crush Li Wei, then I'll burn everything to ashes." That night, Zhao gathered his remaining men, bribed desperate mercenaries, and stormed toward the Mei estate under the cover of thunder and rain. The Mei household trembled with fear as armed men surrounded the gates. Lanterns flickered as servants screamed, rushing to hide. Mei Lin rushed outside, drenched by the rain, her voice desperate. "Zhao, what are you doing? Have you no shame left?" Zhao dismounted his horse, laughter echoing through the storm. "Shame? Huh. I came to claim what's mine. You, Mei Lin, belong to me. Not that beggar, not that phantom lord, me. Never!" she cried, clutching her trembling hands against her chest. "I would rather die than—" Her words cut short as Zhao raised his sword, its steel gleaming under lightning. "Then die you shall." The blade descended. Clang. Sparks exploded as another sword intercepted it. Gasps erupted from both sides. Li Wei stood between them, his robe darkened by rain, his eyes burning with a fury that shook even the mercenaries. Behind him, dozens of his black-clad men emerged silently, surrounding the estate like shadows come alive. Zhao stumbled back, his face twisted. "You again? Why won't you crawl back into the dirt where you belong?" Li Wei's voice was like thunder itself. "Because the dirt you spit on is stronger than the gold you worship. Zhao, your time is over." Steel clashed under the storm. Zhao, though a skilled fighter, was no match for Li Wei. Each swing of his sword was wild with desperation, while Li Wei's strikes were precise, calm, lethal. The mercenaries charged, but Li Wei's men cut them down with ruthless efficiency. Thunder roared above as the courtyard turned into chaos. Mei Lin stood frozen, watching the man she once scorned move like a dragon unleashed. Every strike of his blade was a reminder of who he truly was. Not a beggar, not a mere husband, but a force no one could contain. Zhao fell to his knees, his sword clattering to the ground. His hair was plastered to his face, blood dripping from his lips. "Spare me," he begged, trembling. "Lord Li, I was blind." Give me a chance, I'll serve you, I'll... Li Wei's blade hovered above his neck. His eyes were merciless. You betrayed trust, bought lives, and threatened those who could not fight back. There is no place for you in this world. With one swift motion, the sword fell. Silence blanketed the courtyard as Zhao's body collapsed into the mud. The storm raged on, but the true thunder had already passed. After the battle, Li Wei stood in the rain, his sword lowered, his chest rising and falling steadily. His men bowed before him, awaiting his command. But his gaze drifted to Mei Lin. She knelt in the mud, trembling, her tears mixing with the rain. Slowly, she raised her head, her eyes locking onto his. Li Wei, her voice broke. I was wrong. I was blind and selfish. I betrayed you when you showed me nothing but loyalty. And now, I have nothing left but regret. Her body shook as she bowed deeply, her forehead pressing into the mud. Please, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Even if you never forgive me, even if you never take me back, allow me the chance to atone. Let me serve you, even from afar. Let me, at least try to protect what I once cast aside. The courtyard was silent except for the falling rain. Li Wei's men glanced at each other, unsure of their lord's decision. Li Wei himself stood frozen for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he sheathed his sword. Mei Lin, he said, his voice heavy. You chose silver over trust. You chose pride over loyalty. I gave you my heart, and you sold it. That wound does not heal easily. Her tears streamed endlessly. I know. I don't deserve you. I never did. For a moment, it seemed he would turn and walk away forever. But then his gaze softened, if only slightly. Yet, he said, his tone gentler, your remorse is true. I see it in your eyes. Time will tell if it is enough to mend what was broken. Her breath hitched, hope flickering faintly in her chest. Do not seek my forgiveness, Li Wei continued. Seek your own redemption. If fate allows, perhaps our paths will cross again not as strangers, but as something more. With that, he turned, his cloak flowing behind him like the wings of a dark phoenix. His men followed, disappearing into the night, leaving Mei Lin kneeling in the rain, her heart torn between despair and fragile hope. Days later, the people of Suzhou whispered of the night the storm broke. Zhao's house fell to ruin, his name erased from the city's ledgers. But another name rose, shrouded in awe and mystery. Li Wei, the man who had lived humbly yet commanded armies, who had been betrayed yet stood unshaken. As for Mei Lin, she devoted herself to caring for her father, her days quiet but her heart heavy with longing. Each time the wind rustled the plum blossoms, she would close her eyes and whisper his name, hoping one day he would hear. And somewhere beyond Suzhou, Li Wei gazed upon the horizon, his heart torn yet resolute. He was no longer the discarded husband. He was the dragon who had risen from the shadows. But deep within, he carried the faint echo of Mei Lin's tears, an echo that even power could not silence. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Until we meet again in the next story, take care and keep the magic of imagination alive.